goal of the trip is not to get a giant gift that he can say belongs to him as president, but then he takes with him when he leaves the office.
Abby, you have to distance yourself from Trump derangement syndrome. It's irrelevant to policy. It doesn't matter.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back. Pull up a chair, because the table got loud on this one. Quick background so the fight makes sense. This blew up after reports that a Gulf government offered a luxury Boeing jumbo jet valued at around $400 million to serve as a presidential plane and later head to a presidential library, which set off a firestorm over the Constitution's Emoluments clause, the old rule barring officials from taking gifts from foreign states without Congress signing off. Legal experts and even some lawmakers across the aisle called it constitutionally shaky, and that argument spilled straight onto this CNN panel. Today you've got Scott and Kevin treating the whole thing as routine business and pure foreign policy, while Van and the rest of the table push back hard on the jet, a wave of new overseas deals, and a crypto angle that gets genuinely unsettling. Hang around for the full thing, because the closing moment flips the entire debate and you will not see who blinks coming. Quick favor too, tell me down in the comments what city or country you are tuning in from. I always get a kick out of seeing how global this crowd really is. Okay, let us jump in.
According to our reporting, some of the deals going on right now: Saudi Arabia, 2 luxury towers, Live Golf Partnership, Qatar, Golf Club and Villas, UAE, luxury hotel, cryptocurrency deal, Oman, resort and golf project.
And the dinner.
I mean this sincerely. I mean, does it bother you that this is happening at the same time that these nation states are also trying to curry favor with Trump himself?
Well, it doesn't really bother me that people are in business for years, then their dad gets elected president, and then they continue to go on in business. We knew we were electing a businessman president. We knew his family was in business. So I think the American people have full visibility into that. Number 2.
But we're talking about new deals here, not existing deals.
Well, they're business people. They're cutting deals all the time.
You're okay with them cutting deals while Trump is sitting in the White House when he's going over there to negotiate with them?
We're negotiating with every country in the world every day. Well, let me answer your question, the specific criticism about Hunter Biden. All the things you just mentioned, towers, golf courses, hotels, resorts, tangible things.
Cryptocurrency and meme coins, Scott, don't forget those.
You do something, money exchanges hands, a service is provided, a tower is built, a golf course is developed. Can you name one tangible service other than finger paintings that Hunter Biden provided for any money that changed hands?
I do think that is a fair critique of the Hunter Biden of it all. But you're not addressing the fact that in all of these countries, in order to do any of these things, they have to go to the political leadership of the countries to get them approved. That doesn't address that at all.
Abby, at 10:07, Scott was telling me how the biggest modern day conspiracy we've had in terms of a president, scandal, was Joe Biden and his health. And he said that, and then he criticized Chuck Schumer, right, about the fact that he didn't have any character because he didn't stand up to it. But at 10:27, 10:28, the argument has changed, because what we do know is that there is a $400 million jet from Qatar. What we do know is that there is a $5.5 million golf course in Qatar. What we do know is what Syria is offering Donald Trump. And what we do know is that the things that are happening in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, buying meme coins that mean absolutely nothing. The fact is, and I would love for Scott to be able to answer this question, but for the fact, and that's when I didn't really do well in law school, but I remember but for the fact Donald Trump is president of the United States, none of this would happen. And so that is what you call a kleptocracy. And so when you have children, and no, and 1 second, Kevin, because you wanted to talk about you wanted to talk about Kamala Harris being mediocre. Donald Trump Jr. and what's the other one? Eric are the definition of what mediocre is. And what I'm saying is that now they are reaping the benefits of their 5.
Okay, let me just start here, because Scott walks in with the most comfortable excuse in the entire book. He says it does not really bother him that people are in business for years, then their dad gets elected president, and then they keep going on in business. And you have to understand why that framing is so slippery. Nobody is angry that a family runs businesses. The problem is the timing. These are not old contracts being quietly honored. These are brand new deals being signed in real time. With foreign governments, the sitting president is personally flying over to negotiate with. That is the part Scott keeps gliding past, and I think he knows exactly what he is doing. And then watch the pivot. The second the pressure builds, Scott reaches for the oldest trick available. He points at the previous administration's son and asks if anyone can name one tangible service, other than finger paintings, that he ever provided. Notice what actually happened there. That is not an answer. That is a distraction. When you cannot defend your own guy, you change the subject to somebody else's kid. That is a confession wearing a comeback's clothes. Here is the part that gets me. Because Van refuses to let it slide. Van stacks the receipts one by one. A $400 million jet from Qatar. A golf course. The whole Middle East buffet. And then he lands the line that frames this entire fight. Van says that but for the fact the president holds that office, none of this would be happening. And that is what you call a kleptocracy. That word is doing serious work, and it is the right word. Kleptocracy is not name-calling, it is a category. It describes a system where public power and private profit stop being two separate things. Once you hear it put that plainly, you cannot unhear it.
Different direction?
Please.
Just for a moment, please.
No, got me. I'm blind.
What
Got me.
does this have to do with
does it have to be
Middle
something
East
traumatic?
policy? Please, just a moment.
Oh, no,
What,
please.
excuse me.
Oh, yes,
What does
excuse
this
me.
have to do with the fact that he is trying to create a circle of friendship with the fastest growing geographies in the world before China does?
But wait a second.
Wait, let me finish.
Well,
On this trip,
on this
I just want to introduce an idea. This has nothing to do with policy.
Go ahead. I'm locked in.
What does this have to do with policy?
One thing that I've heard for the last 4 or 5 years is anytime anyone had any criticism of the United States foreign policy in Gaza or whatever, is that these people would be being paid by a resource-rich government that propped up and funded terrorism, which was over in Qatar. Every single time. They were buying influence in Ivy League schools. They were buying influence in social media. They were buying influence everywhere. So anytime you saw somebody
You want to push these countries away.
you were
want to
saying
push
that
these-
anytime somebody was thought to have any dealings with the Qataris, they were thought as being intellectually and morally tainted.
There are-
except
Wait,
the
wait.
President of the United States, who takes a $400 million plane from them, literally is refurbishing it to be Air
Who
Force.
cares about the plane? What does that have to do with the
You got it.
fact?
Because it's
You got it.
Wait a
disgusting.
second.
Because it's
You know what?
if you
Well,
catch
I
a
don't
picture,
get it.
don't take
Why focus on something that is irrelevant to the policy?
It's
of
not
the region?
irrelevant.
It's completely irrelevant.
How is it
Kevin,
irrelevant?
Kevin,
Would you
the-
rather have
the
the
United-
Chinese there?
the
Would
United
you rather
States-
have them there?
Kevin, the United
Kevin,
States
Kevin.
Constitution
irrelevant.
would like to have
No,
a
it's-
word.
it's-
The
it's
United
like-
States Constitution would like to have a word. That's why people care,
Yeah,
right?
people care because
the
of the
reason that
Constitution.
that's in the Constitution is to prevent the President of the United States from accepting things
What's
that
the
are
goal of
being
the trip?
that are being perceived
What's the
as
goal?
as bribes.
What is the national
The
interest
goal of the
this
trip is not to get a giant gift that he can say belongs to him as president, but then he takes with him when he leaves the office.
Abby, you
That's
have to
not-
distance yourself from Trump derangement syndrome. It's irrelevant to policy. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
What matters
Kevin.
is, why are all these AI guys
Have
on this
you
trip?
heard of the Emoluments
Scott's
clause?
Wait. Why do you have
you
all
heard,
the leaders
Kevin, no,
of-
seriously, it's a serious question. Have you heard of the Emoluments clause? Do you understand that that is in the Constitution?
He doesn't. No.
This is the part that blows my mind. Kevin's entire strategy is to keep asking, what does this have to do with Middle East policy? He repeats it like a magic spell, as if saying the word policy enough times makes the corruption question vanish. It does not. Asking what a gift has to do with policy, when somebody hands the president a flying palace, is like asking what a bribe has to do with the job. The bribe is about the job. That is the whole point of a bribe. Then the liberal side lands something genuinely sharp. For years, the line was that anyone with dealings with the Qataris was intellectually and morally tainted. And the response is perfect. Except the president himself, who takes a $400 million plane from them. You cannot spend years calling Qatari money poison and then throw a party when the biggest check lands on your own side. That is not a principle. That is a team jersey. Then comes the line of the night. Kevin, the United States Constitution would like to have a word. I love it, because it drags the fight back to where it belongs. And here is something worth actually knowing. The reason the Emoluments Clause exists goes back to the founding. The framers were genuinely afraid of foreign powers buying influence through lavish gifts. There is a famous case where Benjamin Franklin was handed a jeweled snuff box by the King of France, and it sparked a real argument about whether American officials should accept presents from foreign rulers at all. That fear is OLD, and it was written into the document on purpose. So when they ask Kevin if he has even heard of the Emoluments Clause, if he understands it is in the Constitution, and the answer lands as, he does not, no he does not, that is not a cheap gotcha. That is the whole argument in a single breath.
And do you understand that even if you think that maybe it might be okay,
how many fairies dance on a pin does not do policy.
Incredibly dubious.
So let me ask you a question.
That, right?
So can I, so, I'm sorry.
Let me just, but Kevin doesn't operate by the same morals and ethics and values that we're
I'm
talking
above
about.
that. I focus on
you're
policy.
So rich, you get to be above it. That's
It's nothing to do with wealth. It's policy, policy, policy.
No, but here's the point about the policy. Let me make one point, fellas. Whew. If someone is willing to take a $400 million plane from a government, that the kinds of things that Van was talking about, people have, even Ted Cruz had some issues with this. What else is he willing to do? And Scott, you're talking about these tangible things. Meme coins
business people.
Meme coins are not tangible. They're nothing. Cryptocurrency is nothing. There is a bidding war going on right now with governments and countries and companies. We have no idea what their alignments are to buy enough meme coins to buy access to our
There was a story tonight in the New York Times about a very mysterious company that bought hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Trump meme coins with links to China. So, I mean, there are some real questions and concerns about the money that is being made here.
The emoluments thing you raised, I mean, it's a good question. It's a legitimate debating point, and I assume it'll ultimately be tested in court. The administration has a point of view on it. I assume they're going to be sued, or I don't know how you would get it into court on this, but my assumption is ultimately the Supreme Court is the only people who can give us some arbitration on this, so I assume that's where it's headed.
Watch how Kevin tries to shrink the whole thing down. He calls it debating how many fairies dance on a pin, like the Constitution is some silly thought experiment. No. When the supreme law of the country is the thing standing in your way, the move is not to mock it. The move is to take it seriously. The fact that his instinct is to belittle it tells you he has no actual response. And here is the question that should stay with every single person watching. If someone is willing to accept a $400 million plane from a foreign government, what else is he willing to do? Sit with that. A gift that size is never free. Nobody hands over a flying palace out of friendship. They hand it over because they expect something back. And the only person who can give them what they want is sitting in the most powerful office on earth. Then it gets darker, and this is the part nobody should skip. There is reporting about a mysterious company that quietly bought hundreds of millions of dollars worth of these meme coins with links to China. Think about what that actually means. A crypto coin is not a tower, it is not a hotel, it is a digital backdoor. Anyone, anywhere, including a foreign adversary, can push money straight toward the president without a paper trail anyone can easily follow. That is not business. That is an open tip jar for the entire planet. And here is the moment that quietly ends the argument. After all the deflecting, all the policy chanting, all the eye-rolling, even Scott folds. Scott admits the emoluments issue is a good question, a legitimate debating point, and that it is probably headed to the courts. Let that land. The person hired to defend this just conceded the critics have a real case. When your own side admits the question is fair, the question was always fair. The people raising it were not deranged. They were early. And from where we stand now, with all of it still unresolved, they were right to be loud about it. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.